Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today we would be analyzing the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 4th of August 2018. Now let us begin. Now we have taken this article from the editorial page on page 8. Now what this article talks about is the recent judgment of the Supreme Court in the Tehseen S. Punewala case on public lynching. So now what we'll do with regards to this article is first understand public lynching or mob lynching from the perspective of your civil services mains examination. And the first thing that we'll try to understand is what is public lynching or mob lynching. The second aspect that we'll try to understand is the observations of the Supreme Court in the Tehseen Punewala case. The third aspect that we'll try to understand is what has been the Supreme Court's judgment for the measures to be undertaken by the Government of India. And the fourth and the last aspect that we'll try to understand is what have been the expected measures that have been announced, first by the Union Government, and second, the expected measures that have been announced by various state governments. So now let us first understand as to what is mob lynching. Now lynching is a form of violence in which a mob, under the pretext of administrating justice, executes a presumed offender. Now whenever you're writing an answer in mains examination on a question on public lynching, always remember that the reason given by the mob for a particular mob lynching is for administrating justice. However, another perspective for the reason for public lynching is identity politics, in which a particular group or community intends to establish dominance and portray power over another group or another community. So it has been considered that the main reason for public lynching stems from identity politics. So wherein, for an example that is also given in the article, that lynching in form of public hangings was also practiced in the United States. So what would happen is a mob of white individuals indulged in the lynching of black men. Now the main reason given by the white individuals for lynching of black men was that they were administrating justice. So if whenever a black person was accused of sexual harassment of a white woman, hurting a white person, a mob of white individuals would execute that black person by publicly hanging him, and they would give the reason that they were administrating justice against the black person. However, the actual reason for the public lynching of black person was of identity politics, in which the white group or the white community in the United States intended to establish their dominance and portray their power over the black group or the black community. So with regards to public lynching, you have to differentiate between the reason given by the mob and the actual reason of mob justice versus identity politics. So now hopefully you have understood as to what is public lynching. Now let us understand as to what has been the observation of the Supreme Court. Now the first main observation that was given by the Supreme Court is to make public lynching a separate offence. Now the Supreme Court, in a 3-judge bench that was led by the Chief Justice of India, Deepak Mishra, had told the Parliament to make lynching a separate offence. And apart from this, the Supreme Court also told the Parliament to provide adequate punishment for lynching. Now the main reason given by the Supreme Court for making public lynching a separate offence is that a special law in this field would instill a sense of fear among the people who involve themselves in public lynching or any form of such activities. And the reason to provide punishment for lynching is because the current laws that are available in India generally prosecute individual violence. But public lynching is a form of collective violence in which a group of people involve themselves in conducting a public lynching, wherein there are different aspects to mob lynching, such as the sharing of hateful information, the actual killing of a particular person, and these different aspects of mob lynching are currently prosecuted based on individual violence. And what is required is to prosecute public lynching or mob lynching as a form of collective violence. And this is the reason the Supreme Court has asked the Parliament to provide adequate punishment for public lynching. And apart from this, the Supreme Court has also observed that authorities which are conferred with the responsibility to maintain law and order have the main obligation to see that public lynching or any form of public vigilantism does not take place. Now you have to understand the context in which it is said, because public order and police are within the state list under the 7th schedule of the Constitution of India, and therefore the principal obligation against public lynching fall upon the state government, wherein under the Constitution of India, it is the responsibility of the states to maintain law and order. So now hopefully you've understood the main observations that have been given by the Supreme Court on separate offence, separate punishment and law and order. Now let us understand the measures that have been proposed by the Supreme Court that are required to be undertaken by the Government of India. Now the first step that would be undertaken by the state government is that they will have to designate a senior police officer as a nodal officer, and this nodal officer would be designated in each district of that state. Now the main duty of the nodal officer would be to take measures to prevent incidents of mob violence and lynching within their district. And apart from this, the nodal officer and the state government shall constitute a special task force so as to get intelligence reports about the people who are likely to commit such crimes of mob violence, such as spreading hate speeches, provocative statements, fake news, and other aspects of mob violence. Now, apart from this, the Supreme Court has also said that the central and state governments should take steps to curb forms of hate speeches in forms of messages, videos, and other materials that are available on social media platforms. And therefore, the central and the state governments have a responsibility to curb fake news that are spread on social media platforms that have a tendency to incite mob violence or public lynching. And apart from this, the Supreme Court has also said that the state governments shall prepare a lynching and a mob violence victim compensation scheme, which would provide compensation to victims of public lynching or the family of the person who has been a victim of mob violence. And apart from this, the victim and the family of the victim shall also receive free legal aid. And the state nodal authority that has been formed shall also ensure the protection of the victim. And apart from this, the Supreme Court has also said that the cases of lynching and mob violence shall also be tried in fast track courts. And these fast track courts, which would undertake cases of lynching and mob violence, shall be formed in each district. And according to the Supreme Court, these fast track courts must award the maximum sentence in cases of mob violence and public lynching. So now hopefully you've understood the various government measures that have been proposed by the Supreme Court that requires to be undertaken by state and central government. Wherein the first main government measure that you should remember is the formation of a nodal officer. The second government measure would be the formation of a special task force. The third government measure would be the curbing of fake news on social media platforms. The fourth government measure that you should remember is the formation of a lynching or a mob violence victim compensation scheme by the state governments. The fifth government measure would be the provision of free legal aid. And the sixth and the last government measure that has been proposed by the Supreme Court is the formation of fast track courts that would undertake cases of lynching and mob violence and which would be set up in each district. So now hopefully you've understood the measures that have been proposed by the Supreme Court that are required to be undertaken by central and state governments. Now let us understand the announced measures by the union and the state government to combat public lynching. Now there have been several steps that have been taken by the central government, wherein the first step taken by the central government is that it may seek to amend the Indian Penal Code so as to define mob lynching as a penal offence. The second proposed step by the central government is that the central government may draft a model law, which then the states can adopt to prevent incidents of mob lynching, wherein the state governments can then use the model law that has been made by the union government to combat mob violence. Apart from this, the central government would maintain specific data on lynching, and this data would be maintained by the National Crime Records Bureau, wherein currently the government does not collect data on mob violence or public lynching. But after the verdict of the Supreme Court in the Tehseen Poonewala case, the union government has said that the National Crime Records Bureau would maintain specific data on mob violence or public lynching. Apart from this, the central government has also formed a high-level committee which is chaired by the Union Home Secretary. And this high-level committee would make recommendations on mob violence and would submit the report to the Government of India in August of 2018. Apart from this, the central government has also formed a group of ministers or GOM, which is headed by the Union Home Minister. And this group of ministers would then consider the recommendations that has been given by the high-level committee on mob violence or public lynching. And with regards to the last two options, we'll have to wait and see on what the recommendations is given by the high-level committee. And after the verdict of the Supreme Court, various state governments have instituted steps to combat mob violence, wherein the Uttar Pradesh government will set up digital armies, wherein under this program, all police stations in Uttar Pradesh will have a WhatsApp group which would consist of 250 people, and this group would include ex-servicemen, teachers, doctors, advocates, journalists from that particular area. And this WhatsApp group will inform the local police station if they see any fake news that has been circulating on social media or within the jurisdiction of that police station. And then they will inform the local police station of this fake news. And this digital army of the Uttar Pradesh government would also give out correct information to combat fake news. And apart from this, the Maharashtra government has also given out a WhatsApp contact number in each of its district. And individuals can then report fake news on this WhatsApp number, wherein fact-checking agencies, which would be aided by the Cyber Cell of Maharashtra and the Police of Maharashtra, who would then check the content of the reported information. So now hopefully up till here you've understood the various steps that have been taken by the union government and various state governments to combat mob violence after the verdict of the Supreme Court in the Tehseen Poonawalla case. And you can use this information if a question is asked in the mains examination or suggest steps to combat mob violence. So hopefully up till here you've understood as to what is mob lynching, what has been the observation of the Supreme Court in the Tehseen Poonawalla case. Moreover, you've also understood the measures that have been given by the Supreme Court that requires to be undertaken by the Government of India. And finally, you also understand as to what have been the expected and the undertaken measures by the union and the state governments. Wherein mob violence public lynching would form a part of your GS paper 3 within the section security and within the subsection role of non-state actors in creating challenges to internal security, and moreover within the subsection challenges to internal security through communication networks and role of media and social networking sites in internal security challenges, wherein the second subsection also focuses on one of the causes of mob violence, which is fake news, wherein previously a question has been asked in the GS paper 3 of 2017, which had asked that mob violence is an emerging serious law and order problem in India by giving suitable examples, analyze the causes and consequences of such violence. And you can answer this question with the explanation given in this section, wherein you can provide the suitable example of public lynching that happened in the United States. You can also analyze the two forms of causes of mob violence, of mob justice versus identity politics. Wherein a question for practice is mob violence is emerging as a serious law and order problem in India. Suggest steps that are required to be undertaken to halting instances of mob violence in light of the recent judgment of the Supreme Court. Wherein to answer this question, you can highlight the measures that have been proposed by the Supreme Court that are required to be undertaken by state and central governments in India. And moreover, you can also highlight the expected measures that have been undertaken by the union and the state government. And by trying to answer both of these questions, you can comprehensively understand and answer any question that comes on mob violence. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 7. Now what this article talks about is that according to the World Health Organization, is that the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin could save up to 3 lakh lives every year if it achieves its October 2019 target. Now the Swachh Bharat Mission was launched on 2nd October 2014 on Gandhi Jayanti. It aims to eradicate open defecation by 2nd October of 2019. Now the reason the date 2 October 2019 has been chosen, it is because it is the 150th anniversary of Gandhi Jayanti. Now apart from this, the Swachh Bharat Mission also intends to contribute for clean water and sanitation for all. Now the Swachh Bharat Mission is divided into two components, wherein the first one is the Swachh Bharat Mission Rural or Gramin, and the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin is overseen by the Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, while the second component is the Swachh Bharat Mission Urban, and the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan Urban is overseen by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. So now hopefully up till here you've understood basic facts on the Swachh Bharat Mission, wherein the Swachh Bharat Mission was launched on 2nd October of 2014 on Gandhi Jayanti, and the Swachh Bharat Mission aims to eradicate open defecation by 2nd October 2019, which is the 150th anniversary of Gandhi Jayanti or the birth of Mahatma Gandhi. Apart from this, the Swachh Bharat Mission also intends to contribute towards achieving clean water and sanitation for all in India. Apart from this, there are two facts that you should also remember from the perspective of your prelims examination, wherein the Swachh Bharat Mission Rural or Gramin is overseen by the Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, while the Swachh Bharat Mission Urban is overseen by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Now, apart from this, the article has also highlighted various observations that have been made by the World Health Organization, wherein the first observation is that rural sanitation in India has gone up to 89% from 45% in 2014. And the second observation made by the World Health Organization is that only two states in India, Odisha and Bihar, are yet to achieve 75% rural sanitation level. So now hopefully up till here you also understood the focus of this article is that according to the World Health Organization, rural sanitation in India is at 89%, which has gone up from 45% in 2014. And only the states of Bihar and Odisha are yet to achieve 75% rural sanitation level. And moreover, according to the World Health Organization, the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin could save up to 3 lakh lives each year. So now hopefully you have understood basic facts on the Swachh Bharat mission. Now with regards to your UPSC examination, you need to remember the fact that the Swachh Bharat mission Gramin or rural is undertaken by the Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, and that the Swachh Bharat mission urban is undertaken by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs from the perspective of your prelims examination. While the observations that have been made by the World Health Organization can be used in your GS paper too, within the subsection issues relating to development and management of social sector services relating to health. So a question for your practice is which of the following statements on Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin are correct? The first statement is that the Ministry of Rural Development is the nodal agency for Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin. And the second statement is that the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin aims to eradicate open defecation. Now you understand that the Ministry of Rural Development is not the nodal agency for the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin. While the second statement is correct that the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin aims to eradicate open defecation, so the correct answer would be 2 only. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 12. Now what this article talks about is the Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport. Now from this article, what you need to remember for your prelims examination is the location of the Matale Rajapaksa International Airport. Now if you take a look at this map, the Matale Rajapaksa International Airport is located on the southern coast of Sri Lanka and is near the Hambantota port. So therefore what you need to remember for your prelims examination is that the location of the Matale Rajapaksa Airport is in Sri Lanka and is situated near the Hambantota port. Now let us understand as to why this article is in the news. Now the reason the Matale Rajapaksa Airport is in the news is because recently what happened is that the Minister of State for Civil Aviation Jayant Sinha had told the Parliament that there was no proposal for the Airport Authority of India to acquire a controlling stake in the Mattala Airport. However, the Sri Lankan government has said that it is progressing with India in forming a final agreement with regards to the Mattala Airport. Now these two contradicting statements from the government of India and the government of Sri Lanka has created confusion as to what would be India's role in the Matale Rajapaksa Airport. And we'll have to wait and see on how this news moves forward. Now apart from this, what you should also understand is the strategic significance of the Matale Rajapaksa Airport. Is that the government of Sri Lanka had signed an agreement in December of 2017 with China, wherein the Sri Lankan government gave the majority stake in the Hambantota port to a state-run Chinese company. And this majority stake was given to a Chinese company on a 99-year lease. And there is a fear in India that Hambantota port may become a part of China's string of pearls. And because of the Chinese presence in the Hambantota port, India is keen to invest in the Matale Rajapaksa International Airport, which is situated near the Hambantota port, wherein the Indian presence at the Matale Rajapaksa International Airport may limit China's influence in southern Sri Lankan coast. And the Mattala Airport may give India an ability to form a listening post near the Chinese-controlled Hambantota port. So now hopefully up till here you've also understood the strategic significance of the Matale Rajapaksa Airport, wherein the Sri Lankan government has given the majority stake in the Hambantota port over to a state-run Chinese company, and there is a fear in India that the Hambantota port might become a Chinese base, and therefore the Indian government is keen to invest in the Matale Rajapaksa International Airport, which is situated near the Hambantota port. wherein it would give India an ability to form a listening port near the Chinese controlled Hambantota port. However, there is one concern with regards to this airport, wherein the airport had opened in 2013 but is marked as the world's emptiest airport, wherein the Matala Rajapaksa airport generally receives about a dozen passengers per day. And therefore, the Indian investment in the Matala Rajapaksa International Airport is rather for strategic interest and not commercial interest. So now hopefully you've understood the location and the strategic significance of the Mattala Rajapaksa Airport. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 13. So now what we'll try to understand from this article is what is the PMI Index. And we'll try to understand this from the perspective of your prelims examination. When previously questions have been asked in your prelims examination, such as who gives out the Ease of Doing Business Index, who publishes the World Economic Outlook, which of the following publishes the Global Economic Prospects, who of the following prepares the Global Financial Stability Report, and it is within that context that you should understand as to who prepares the PMI Index from your prelims perspective. Now let us first understand as to what is the PMI Index. Now, PMI stands for Purchasing Managers Index, and it is considered as an indicator of the economic health, business momentum in the industrial sector. And apart from this, it is also considered as an indicator of the investor sentiments about the manufacturing sector. Now, in the Purchasing Managers Index, a reading above 50 points indicates economic expansion, while a reading below 50 points shows a contraction of the economic activities. And this PMI index is formed separately for the manufacturing sector and for the services sector. Now, the PMI index began in the US. However, in India, the PMI data is published by a Japanese firm, Nikkei, but is compiled and constructed by Market Economics by HSBC. Now, you have to understand that this index is based on the feedback that is given by purchasing managers that are available in manufacturing and services company. And the PMI index, based on the feedback of the purchasing manager, is based on five major indicators, which are new orders, inventory levels, production levels, supplier deliveries, and the last major indicator being employment environment. So now hopefully you've understood the basic facts with regards to the PMI index, wherein the main purpose of the PMI index is that it is an indicator of economic health, business momentum, and investor sentiments in an economy. And a reading above 50 points in the PMI index indicates economic expansion, wherein the current PMI index for India is 54.2. However, it is not required for you to remember this number because it changes every month. But it does indicate that India's economy is expanding. And moreover, you should also remember that the PMI index is constructed separately for the manufacturing and the services sector. And in India, the PMI data is published by a Japanese firm Nikkei, but is complied and constructed by Market Economics HSBC. And with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 13. Now what this article talks about is that TRAI, or the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, aims that India should have a net zero imports of telecom equipments by 2022. And the reason the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India wants India to have net zero imports of telecom equipment, wherein the first reason is that TRAI wants India to transition from being import dependent in telecom equipments to becoming an exporter. The second reason is to boost the manufacturing of telecom equipments in India under the Make in India project. And the third and the final reason given in the article to make India a net zero importer of telecom equipments by 2022 is that the majority of the telecom equipments that are imported in India are from China. And because the majority of the telecom equipment that are imported into India are from China, it raises security concerns, wherein it raises concerns of Chinese spying, Chinese access to Indian data, and other forms of challenges to India's internal security. So now hopefully up till here you've understood the three reasons given in the article as to why the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, or TRAI, wants India to have net zero imports of telecom equipments by 2022. When the first reason is that India should transition from being import dependent in telecom equipments to becoming an exporter of telecom equipments, wherein this would give a boost to Make in India in the telecom equipment sector. And the third main reason given in the article is that the majority of the telecom equipments that are imported into India are from China, and this raises concerns of security such as Chinese spying or Chinese access to Indian data and other forms of challenges to India's internal security. And now let us understand on how TRAI, or the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, intends to achieve this objective. Now the TRAI intends to form a rupees 1000 crore telecom research and development fund for the telecom sector. The second mean is to incentivize Indian domestic manufacturers of telecom equipment. And the third and the final reason given in the article is by continuing with the mandatory quota under the preferential market access policy. So now hopefully up till here you've also understood the three reasons highlighted in the article on how TRAI intends to make India a net zero importer of telecom equipments by 2022, wherein the first reason given in the article is TRAI would form a rupees 1000 crore telecom research and development fund for the telecom sector. The second reason is that the government should also incentivize domestic telecom equipment manufacturers. And the third and the final reason is by continuing with the mandatory quota under the preferential market access policy, wherein the Government of India purchases a specific quantity of telecom equipments from domestic manufacturers. So now hopefully up till here you've understood the focus of this article. Now let us understand as to where it would be placed in your UPSC syllabus. Wherein this article and the explanation given in this section would be placed in GS paper 3 within the section economic development and more specifically in the subsection infrastructure. However, you can also use the point that majority telecom equipments are imported from China, which has raised concerns of security such as spying and thereby has raised challenges to India's internal security, wherein this point would also be placed in GS paper 3 within the section security and more specifically in the section challenges to internal security through communication networks. And now with this, we come to an end in the analysis of today's newspaper. Now we move on to the question for today.